Sit down. I brought you the truth, and it will destroy you.
They say ignorance is bliss, but whoever came up with that garbage never found a gym receipt stuck to their wife's designer heel, especially when your wife hasn't set foot in a gym since the Clinton administration. I'm Eddie Kowalski, and I fix cars for a living. Not the glamorous kind you see in movies. I'm talking about soccer mom minivans with mysterious stains and pickup trucks that smell like a combination of motor oil and regret. My garage sits on the wrong side of town, where the American dream comes to get its transmission rebuilt. My wife, Samantha, she's everything I'm not. Corporate attorney, sharp suits, sharper tongue, lives in a world of power lunches and legal briefs, while I live in a world of oil changes and tire rotations. We met in college when she was still impressed by a guy who could fix her car. Now, I'm pretty sure she sees me as another appliance that came with the house. But that receipt, Elite Fitness Club, personal training session, $150. Dated last Tuesday when she told me she was working late on the Morrison case. I held it up to the light in my garage, squinting like it might reveal some hidden truth. My assistant Jake wandered over, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. "What's that, boss?" "Evidence," I said, folding the receipt carefully. "Evidence that my wife is either getting secretly ripped or she's getting something else entirely." Jake raised an eyebrow. He's 25 and thinks he knows everything about women because he watches too much reality TV. You think she's cheating? I think she's lying about where she goes, what she does, who she's with. I tucked the receipt into my wallet. And if there's one thing I've learned in 20 years of marriage, it's that wives don't lie about gym memberships unless there's a very good reason. That evening, Samantha breezed through the door at 8:30, her usual cloud of expensive perfume and barely contained irritation. She kissed my cheek with the enthusiasm of someone paying a parking ticket. "How was work?" I asked, not looking up from my beer and the game on TV. "Exhausting. The Morrison case is a nightmare. Depositions ran late." She kicked off her heels, the same ones that had carried that damning receipt. "I'm going to shower." "Rough day at the office, huh?" I kept my voice casual. "Maybe you should try working out. Relieve some stress." She paused halfway up the stairs. "Working out? Yeah, hit the gym, get those endorphins flowing. I hear Elite Fitness Club is supposed to be nice." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. But Samantha's a lawyer. She recovers from surprises like a cat landing on its feet. "I wouldn't know," she said carefully. "I don't have time for gyms." "Right, of course I did not." She disappeared upstairs, and I heard the shower running for a solid 20 minutes. When she came down, she was wearing her silk robe and that fake smile she reserves for difficult clients. "Eddie, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought, the confession, the tears, the whole "it just happened" speech. But instead, she said, "I think we should go to Rachel's charity gala this weekend. Make an appearance. It's important for my career." Rachel Morrison. Samantha's best friend since law school and the kind of woman who treats charity events like military campaigns. She's also the wife of a federal judge and thinks I'm about as sophisticated as a gas station hot dog. "Sure," I said. "Sounds like a blast." "And Eddie?" Samantha's voice had that edge it gets when she's about to deliver bad news. "Try to wear the Navy suit, and maybe don't mention cars or sports or, just try to fit in." Fit in. Right, because nothing says happy marriage like asking your husband to pretend he's someone else. The gala was exactly what I expected. A bunch of people in expensive clothes pretending to care about whatever cause was trendy that month. This time it was literacy, which seemed ironic considering half the crowd looked like they hadn't read anything longer than a wine menu in years. I nursed a whiskey and watched Samantha work the room like a politician. She had that laugh, the fake one she uses with clients and judges. But tonight she was using it with someone new, someone young, someone built like he lived at the gym, someone who definitely wasn't me. His name tag read Jared Elite Fitness. Personal trainer. Of course. I watched them from across the room, noting the way she touched his arm when she laughed, the way he leaned in just a little too close when he talked, the way they looked at each other like they shared secrets. My phone buzzed. Text message from my buddy Mick, who runs the boxing gym where I work out my frustrations. "Saw your wife at Murphy's bar last week with some musclehead. Thought you should know." I looked up. Samantha and Jared were gone. I found them on the terrace, standing close together in the shadows. Too close. Samantha's hand was on his chest, and he was whispering something that made her giggle. That real laugh, the one I hadn't heard in months. They didn't see me coming. "Honey," I said loudly. "There you are." They jumped apart like teenagers caught by their parents. Samantha's face went through several expressions before settling on annoyed. "Eddie, this is Jared. He's a personal trainer." Jared extended his hand with the kind of confident smile that probably worked on every housewife in town. "Great to meet you, man. Sam's told me so much about you." Sam. She hated being called Sam. I shook his hand, squeezing just hard enough to make a point. "Funny, she's never mentioned you at all." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. "Well," Samantha said brightly, "we should get back inside." But as we walked back to the party, I caught something in Jared's reflection in the glass doors. He was smiling. Not the polite smile he'd given me, but a satisfied, almost smug expression. The kind of smile a man gets when he thinks he's won something. The next morning, I called in sick to the garage, for the first time in 3 years. Instead of changing oil and rotating tires, I sat in my truck across from Elite Fitness Club, feeling like the world's most pathetic private investigator. Samantha's Mercedes pulled up at 10:15 a.m. She was supposed to be in court. She walked into the gym wearing workout clothes I'd never seen before. Tight leggings that probably cost more than most people's rent, and a sports bra that left nothing to the imagination. This from a woman who usually dressed like she was heading to a funeral. 20 minutes later, Jared appeared in the window of what looked like a private training room. Even from across the street, I could see he wasn't teaching her proper squat form. My phone rang. Mick. "Eddie, you sound like hell. What's going on?" "My wife's cheating on me with her personal trainer. I'm sitting outside a gym like some kind of stalker, and I'm pretty sure I'm losing my mind." "Come to the gym. We need to talk." Mick's boxing gym smells like sweat, leather, and broken dreams. It's where guys like me go to pretend we're still tough, still relevant, still the kind of men our wives married instead of the kind they're embarrassed by at charity galas. Mick was waiting with 2 cups of coffee and the kind of expression that meant he had bad news. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About 6 weeks, maybe 2 months." He handed me the coffee. "I wasn't sure how to tell you. What exactly do you know?" Mick pulled out his phone and showed me pictures. Samantha and Jared at Murphy's bar, at a restaurant downtown, getting into his car outside a hotel. "There's more," he said quietly. "Rachel's involved somehow." Rachel Morrison? Samantha's friend? I saw them together, all 3 of them, at that new place on 5th Street. They looked like they were planning something. I stared at the photos, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't just betrayal. It was conspiracy. "Eddie," Mick said carefully, "what are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's going to be memorable." That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a real private investigator. His name was Tommy Reeves, a former cop who specialized in divorce cases. He had the kind of face that forgot itself the moment you looked away, perfect for surveillance work. "How long have you been married?" he asked, taking notes in a coffee shop downtown. 20 years, college sweethearts. She was going to change the world, and I was going to fix cars. Seemed like a good match at the time. "Kids?" "We tried, didn't work out. She threw herself into her career after that. I threw myself into the garage." Tommy nodded like he'd heard this story 1,000 times. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. How long it's been going on, where they go, what they do. And I want to know about Rachel Morrison. My buddy thinks she's involved somehow." This could get expensive. I thought about the money Samantha and I had saved over the years, the money she controlled, managed, invested, the money that would probably disappear in a divorce. "Money's not the problem," I said. Time is, I have a feeling whatever they're planning, it's happening soon." Tommy was good at his job. Within a week, he had enough evidence to fill a filing cabinet. Samantha and Jared had been seeing each other for 3 months. They met twice a week at the gym, once a week at a hotel downtown, and every Friday at Murphy's bar. They texted constantly, explicit messages that made my stomach turn and my anger burn white hot. But the real surprise was Rachel. "She's not just enabling the affair," Tommy explained, spreading photos across his desk. "She's orchestrating it. Look at this." The photos showed Rachel and Jared together, without Samantha, at a lawyer's office, at a bank, at meetings that had nothing to do with fitness or friendship. "I think your wife's friend is planning to help her divorce you," Tommy said. "And I think she's planning to make sure you get nothing." "What do you mean?" "Your wife's been moving money, small amounts but consistently, into accounts you don't have access to. Rachel's been helping her hide assets." I felt something snap inside me, like a cable under too much tension. "How much money?" "So far, about 40,000. But that's just what I can track. There's probably more." $40,000. Money from our joint accounts, our shared life, our 20 years of marriage. Money she was stealing to fund her new life with a man half her age. "There's something else," Tommy said. "I followed Rachel yesterday. She went to see a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, Marcus Webb. He specializes in taking men to the cleaners." Marcus Webb. I knew the name. He was famous for representing wives in high-profile divorces, for making sure the husbands walked away with nothing but debt and regret. "They're planning to divorce me," I said. "Looks that way. And they're planning to make sure you can't fight back." I sat in my truck outside Tommy's office for an hour, trying to process what I'd learned. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was planning to destroy me, and her best friend was helping her do it. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated me. I might be just a mechanic, but I'd been fixing broken things my whole life. And sometimes the only way to fix something is to take it apart completely. My phone buzzed. Text message from Samantha. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I texted back, "Well, no problem, love you." But as I drove home, I wasn't thinking about love. I was thinking about revenge. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while watching my marriage crumble from the inside out. Samantha came home later and later, her excuses getting more creative and less believable. The Peterson case is going to trial. Emergency partners meeting. Client dinner ran late. Each lie felt like a small cut, but I smiled and nodded and played the part of the oblivious husband. Meanwhile, Tommy kept feeding me evidence, and my anger kept building like pressure in a boiler. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in November. I was at Mick's gym, working out my frustrations on a heavy bag when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Eddie, this is Tom Bradley. We met at Rachel's gala." Tom Bradley, investment banker, old friend from college. One of the few people in Samantha's social circle who'd ever treated me like a human being. "Hey, Tom, what's up?" "Listen, I'm probably out of line here, but I thought you should know. I was at Morton's Steakhouse tonight, and I saw Samantha. She was with that trainer guy and Rachel Morrison. They were celebrating something." My blood turned to ice. "Celebrating what?" "I don't know, but they ordered champagne. Expensive stuff. And Eddie? They were talking about you. I couldn't hear much, but I heard your name, and they were laughing." Laughing. They were celebrating and laughing about me. "Thanks for calling, Tom." "Eddie? Whatever's going on, I'm sorry. Samantha doesn't know how good she has it." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the gym's mirror. 42 years old, graying at the temples, hands permanently stained with motor oil. Not the kind of man who wins wife-stealing contests against personal trainers. But maybe I didn't need to win that contest. Maybe I needed to change the game entirely. I drove to Morton's Steakhouse and sat in the parking lot until they came out. Samantha was drunk, drunker than I'd seen her in years. She was hanging on Jared's arm, giggling like a teenager, while Rachel walked beside them with the satisfied expression of a general who just won a battle. They didn't see me following them to Rachel's house in the hills, didn't see me park across the street and watch as they went inside, the lights coming on in the living room, the curtains closing. I sat there for 3 hours, imagining what they were doing, what they were planning, how they were going to destroy my life. By the time I drove home, I'd made a decision. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what games looked like. The next morning, I called in sick again and drove to Rachel's law firm. Morrison, Bradley, and Associates occupied 3 floors of a glass tower downtown, the kind of place where they charge $500 an hour to tell you why you're wrong. I waited in the lobby until Rachel came down for lunch. She was surprised to see me, surprised and not particularly pleased. "Eddie, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk." She glanced around the busy lobby, clearly uncomfortable. About what? About my wife, about her trainer, about the money she's been moving around, about Marcus Webb. The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." Sure you do. You're helping her plan a divorce. You're helping her hide assets. You're helping her destroy me. Rachel straightened her shoulders and I saw the lawyer emerge. Even if that were true, there's nothing illegal about it. Samantha has every right to protect herself. Protect herself from what? From 20 years of marriage to a man who's never raised his voice to her? From a husband who worked 2 jobs to put her through law school? From someone who loved her when she was nobody? From someone who's holding her back, Rachel said coldly. Samantha deserves better than a life spent pretending she's happy with a mechanic. There it was, the truth, finally out in the open. So this is about class, I said, about her being embarrassed by me. This is about her being happy, something you clearly can't provide. I stepped closer and Rachel took a step back. You know what's funny? I always thought you were jealous of her. Turns out you're just a bitter woman who can't stand to see anyone else succeed. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? Your husband's a federal judge, Rachel, but everybody knows he's boring as hell. Your kids barely talk to you. Your life is so empty, you have to live vicariously through other people's drama. Her face went white, then red. Get out. Get out now or I'll call security. Don't bother. I'm leaving. But Rachel, this isn't over. I walked away feeling better than I had in weeks. I'd finally stopped pretending, stopped playing nice, stopped being the sufferer. Now it was time to become something else. That evening, Samantha came home early for the first time in months. She was nervous, fidgety, avoiding eye contact. We need to talk, she said. Here it comes, I thought. The divorce speech. The it's not you, it's me conversation. The end of 20 years. But I was wrong. Rachel thinks you might be suspicious about something, she said carefully. She said you came to see her today. I did. Eddie, I need you to know that whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. Rachel and I are just friends. We're working on a case together, and sometimes that requires discretion. I stared at my wife, really looked at her for the first time in months. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in college. But she was also a stranger, someone who could lie to my face with the skill of a professional. What case? I asked. I can't discuss that. Attorney-client privilege. Whose client? Eddie, please. Just trust me, everything's fine. Trust. She wanted me to trust her while she was planning to divorce me, steal my money, and run off with a personal trainer. Okay, I said. I trust you. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. Thank you. I love you, you know. I know, I said. I love you too. But as she went upstairs to shower, I wasn't thinking about love. I was thinking about war. And in war, the first casualty is always the truth. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a different person. Not the angry, bitter husband I'd been turning into, but something more dangerous, a patient man with a plan. I started with research. 20 years of marriage had taught me Samantha's habits, her weaknesses, her blind spots. She was methodical, organized, and absolutely convinced she was the smartest person in any room. That confidence would be her downfall. Tommy, the private investigator, had given me more than just evidence of the affair. He'd given me insight into their entire operation. Samantha and Rachel had been planning this for months, maybe longer. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. The money transfers, for instance. Small amounts moved regularly, but always on the same day of the week. Always to the same account. Always with the same memo. Legal consultation fees. It was clever, but it was also a pattern, and patterns could be predicted. I spent my evenings in the garage, supposedly working on cars, but actually planning. Mick would stop by with beer and advice, playing the role of my sounding board. You sure about this? He asked one night, reviewing the documents I'd assembled. They want to play dirty, I said, organizing bank statements and phone records. I'll show them what dirty looks like. This could backfire, Eddie. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong. Look at this. I showed him a photo Tommy had taken the previous week. Samantha, Rachel, and Jared at a restaurant downtown, toasting with champagne. In the background, barely visible, was a for sale sign. They're looking at houses, I explained. Samantha and Jared are planning their future together. Rachel's helping them find a place. How do you know? Because I called the realtor, pretended to be interested in the same property. Turns out someone's been looking at houses in that price range for weeks. Someone with excellent credit and a substantial down payment. Mick studied the photo. Your money. My money, our money. 20 years of building a life together. And she's using it to start over with someone else. So what's the plan? I pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. First, I'm going to make sure she can't take what isn't hers. Then, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person she really is. The first part was easier than I'd expected. Samantha might be a lawyer, but she specialized in corporate law, not family law. She'd made assumptions about our finances that weren't quite accurate. For instance, she assumed the garage was just a small business with minimal assets. She didn't know about the contracts I'd signed with 3 major dealerships, or the expansion loan I'd been approved for, or the fact that the property values in our neighborhood had tripled in the past 5 years. She also didn't know that I'd been documenting every penny she'd moved, every lie she'd told, every meeting she'd had with Marcus Webb. The second part, the public humiliation, would require more finesse. Samantha's reputation was everything to her. She'd built her career on being seen as ethical, trustworthy, above reproach. She served on charity boards, gave speeches at legal conferences, and had been mentioned as a possible candidate for judge. All of that would crumble once people knew the truth. I started small. Anonymous tips to gossip columnists about a prominent attorney's affair with her personal trainer. Carefully worded comments on social media posts. Whispered conversations at the places where Samantha's colleagues gathered. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just seeds of doubt, planted in fertile ground. The beauty of it was that Samantha did most of the work herself. She'd grown careless, confident that I was too stupid to notice what was happening. She and Jared were seen together more frequently, more openly. Rachel was less subtle about her involvement. They thought they were winning, but they were actually destroying themselves. The confrontation I'd been planning came sooner than expected. It was a Friday night, and Samantha was supposedly at another client dinner. I was at Murphy's bar with Mick, supposedly drowning my sorrows, when she walked in with Jared. They didn't see me at first. They were too wrapped up in each other, too focused on their private celebration. But when Jared went to the bathroom, I made my move. "Fancy meeting you here," I said, sliding into the booth across from my wife. She went white. "Eddie, what are you doing here?" "Having a drink with a friend. You remember friends, right? People you don't lie to." "I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for why you're on a date with your personal trainer when you're supposed to be working." Samantha glanced around the bar, clearly calculating her options. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Jared returned from the bathroom, stopping short when he saw me. Up close, he was younger than I'd realized. Maybe 30, with the kind of sculpted muscles that came from spending all day in a gym and all night taking selfies. "Oh," he said. "Hey, sit down." I said pleasantly, "We're all going to have a conversation." Jared looked at Samantha, who nodded reluctantly. He slid into the booth next to her, and I noticed how she automatically moved closer to him. "So," I said, "how long has this been going on?" Silence. "Come on, don't be shy. I already know about the hotel visits, the text messages, the money transfers. I'm just curious about the timeline." Samantha found her voice. "Eddie, please, not here." "Why not here? This is where you two have been meeting, isn't it? This is where you've been planning my destruction." Jared finally spoke up. "Look, man, I'm sorry, this wasn't supposed to happen." "What wasn't supposed to happen? The affair or getting caught?" "The affair," he said quietly. "Samantha was just supposed to be a client, but things got complicated." I looked at my wife. Complicated how? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I never meant for this to happen. I was unhappy, and Jared was there, and he listened to me." "I listened to you." "No, you don't. You hear me, but you don't listen. You don't understand what I need, what I want from life." "What do you want from life, Samantha?" She wiped her eyes, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married, young, ambitious, full of dreams. "I want to matter," she said. "I want to be with someone who makes me feel important, sophisticated, someone who fits into my world." "And I don't fit into your world." "No," she said quietly, "you don't." I nodded, feeling something cold and final settle in my chest. "Well then, I guess we have nothing left to talk about." I stood up to leave, then turned back. "Oh, and Samantha, you might want to call Marcus Webb. Tell him you're going to need a better lawyer." As I walked away, I heard Jared ask, "Who's Marcus Webb?" But I didn't stick around to hear her answer. The war was about to begin. The final phase of my plan began the next morning. I'd spent months gathering evidence, weeks preparing my strategy, and years learning exactly how to hurt the people who'd betrayed me. Now it was time to execute. I started with the money. Samantha thought she'd been clever, moving our assets little by little into accounts I couldn't access. What she didn't know was that I'd been tracking every transfer, documenting every transaction, building a paper trail that would make her look like a thief in divorce court. But more importantly, she didn't know about the emergency powers I'd built into our business accounts years ago. Powers that let me freeze assets if I suspected fraud or theft. With one phone call to our bank, every account she'd been using was locked down, pending investigation. With a second phone call to our credit card companies, every card in her name was suspended for suspicious activity. With a third phone call to the IRS, I reported the unreported income from her legal consultation payments. By noon, Samantha's carefully constructed financial plan was in ruins. But I wasn't done. The second part of my revenge was more personal. Samantha had built her career on her reputation for integrity and discretion. She destroyed that reputation herself with her affair, but she didn't know it yet. I'd been feeding information to the right people for weeks. Partners at rival law firms, judges who'd worked with her, reporters who covered the legal community. Nothing actionable, nothing that violated any laws, just the truth about what she'd been doing and who she'd been doing it with. The story broke in the legal newspaper on Friday morning. Prominent attorney's affair raises questions about professional ethics. It was a small story buried on page 3, but in Samantha's world, it might as well have been front-page news in the New York Times. By lunch, everyone in the legal community knew about her relationship with Jared, her plans to divorce me, and her attempts to hide marital assets. Her phone started ringing at 8 a.m. and didn't stop. The third part of my plan was the most satisfying. Rachel Morrison had orchestrated this entire conspiracy, thinking she was too smart and too well-connected to face consequences. She was wrong. I'd been investigating Rachel for months, and what I'd found was fascinating. The federal judge's wife had been skimming money from her charity organizations for years, using her position to funnel donations into her personal accounts. It wasn't a lot of money, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, but it was enough to destroy her reputation and possibly land her in federal prison. I documented everything: bank transfers, fake invoices, forged signatures. Then I'd packaged it all up and sent it to the FBI's white-collar crime division. The raid on Rachel's house happened at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. By evening, she'd been arrested for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. But the most satisfying part of my revenge was yet to come. Jared had thought he was trading up when he started his affair with Samantha. Older woman, successful career, money to spend on expensive dinners and weekend getaways. He'd seen her as his ticket to a better life. He hadn't counted on the fact that his entire career depended on his reputation as a fitness professional. And reputations, as I'd learned, were fragile things. I'd spent weeks documenting his unprofessional behavior with clients, his use of the gym's facilities for personal meetings, his pattern of targeting married women with money. Then I'd sent all of that documentation to the state licensing board, the gym's corporate headquarters, and every fitness magazine that had ever featured him in their pages. By Monday morning, Jared had lost his job, his professional certifications, and his sponsorship deals. His Instagram account, which had been his main source of income, was flooded with comments about his affair with a married client. The fitness industry is small and gossipy. Within a week, he was unemployable. But the best part, the absolutely perfect part, was what happened when Samantha realized what I'd done. She called me on Tuesday evening, her voice shaking with rage and desperation. "You destroyed everything," she said. "My career, my reputation, my future." "I didn't destroy anything," I said calmly. "You did that yourself when you decided to cheat on me, steal from me, and plan to divorce me. The money in those accounts was mine. The money in those accounts was ours. 20 years of marriage, remember? Community property. You were stealing from yourself as much as from me." "You don't understand. Rachel's been arrested. Jared lost his job. I'm being investigated by the Bar Association. Sounds like consequences," I said. "You should try taking responsibility for them." "Please," she said, and I could hear her crying. "We can work this out. We can go to counseling, start over." "No," I said, we can't. "I love you." "No, you don't. You said it yourself. I don't fit into your world." "Well, guess what? You don't fit into mine either." I hung up and poured myself a whiskey. Outside, it was starting to rain, the kind of cold November rain that makes you grateful to be in warm and safe. My phone rang again. I didn't answer. It rang a dozen more times over the next hour. I ignored every call. Finally, around midnight, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Samantha standing on my porch, soaked to the skin, her makeup running, her expensive clothes ruined by the rain. I opened the door. "Please," she said, "let me come in. Let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But we can fix this. Some things can't be fixed, Samantha. Some things, once they're broken, stay broken." She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, complete desperation. "What do you want?" she asked. "Money? I'll give you whatever you want. The house, the cars, everything. I don't want your money. I never did." "Then what?" I looked at the woman I'd loved for 20 years, the woman who'd betrayed me, destroyed our marriage, and tried to steal our life savings. "I want you to leave," I said. "I want you to go away and never come back. I want you to live with the consequences of what you've done. Eddie, please." "Goodbye, Samantha." I closed the door and turned off the porch light. She stood there for another hour, knocking and calling my name, but I didn't answer. I sat in my living room, drinking whiskey and listening to the rain, until finally I heard her car start and drive away. The next morning, I found divorce papers on my doorstep. She was asking for nothing. No alimony, no property division, no custody of anything. Just a clean break. I signed them and mailed them back the same day. 6 months later, I heard through Mick that Samantha had moved to another state, taken a job with a small firm, and was trying to rebuild her life. Rachel had been sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. Jared was working at a gym in Florida, far from anyone who knew about his scandal. As for me, I expanded the garage, hired 3 new mechanics, and started dating a woman who thinks fixing cars is the most interesting job in the world. Some people might say I went too far, that my revenge was excessive. But those people never had their lives stolen by the person they trusted most. Samantha wanted to destroy me and start over with someone else. Instead, she destroyed herself and gave me the chance to start over alone. Justice isn't always pretty, but sometimes it's absolutely perfect.